We do not have public schools in this state to get kids into the UW or to train welders or even so that we can have high school football and high school volleyball. I love high school football, but that's not the point of schools. The point of schools is the kids, which is why the latest report from the Institute for Reforming Government is both so troubling and so telling. And it once again proves that the people who run our public schools don't really care about our kids. IRG yesterday dropped the report. Wisconsin public schools now employ one adult for every 7 students, breaking the all-time record from 2025. Wisconsin's public schools employ 113,171 staff members. Unfortunately, Wisconsin educates just 791,000 public school students, the fewest since 1991. Educating fewer students with more staff is a major cause of school referenda. I would have used the words tax increases. I would have used the word out of control spending, but you get the idea. And I don't want to play the games with words that often we have to with reports, but there's a reason that they say one adult for every 7 students, 113,100 or 171 staff, because not all of the people who work in our public schools are teachers. IRG, by the way, used Wisconsin's own numbers. They used the official Department of Public Instruction stats. From 2020 to 2026, DPI says Wisconsin public schools lost 187 licensed staff, added 1,581 other staff, and lost 63,165 students. From 2010 through 2015, Wisconsin public schools added 973 teachers and added 11,108 non-teachers, all while losing 65,381 students. Part of the reason why these numbers are as upside down as they are because of the baby bust. 2008, when the recession hit, people stopped having more kids. It is not uncommon to find people of our age who have 4, 5, 6, 7 brothers or sisters. Good Catholic Milwaukee families, 10 kids, 12 kids. I'm an outlier with 4 children. Most people stopped having big families after the 2008 recession. We are in the middle of that baby bust. What began then is now working its way through our schools and into our colleges. The drop in the number of just available school-aged students is having a disastrous effect on UW schools, but it's also causing an imbalance in our public schools. We could sit here and talk for hours about half-empty schools. We could talk about the wisdom of building whole brand new schools when you're not going to need all those classrooms. Some districts, yes. Most districts, no. Part of the reason why there is now a 1 adult for every 7 student ratio in Wisconsin schools is because there are fewer kids. But it is that second number. It is the non-teaching staff that is so important. Over the past 15 years, Wisconsin added 973 teachers, and they added 11,000 non-teachers. In other words, we've added 10 times the number of people who are not teaching our kids over the past 15 years. COVID, like it did with so many other things, ruined all of this. COVID made almost everything in schools worse. And it made this hiring imbalance worse to the umpteenth degree. Do you remember the ESSER money? Yeah, I didn't think so. It was the big COVID era grant. Wisconsin got $2.3 billion in COVID school money. Now, this was money that was just thrown at schools. It was ostensibly for things like Wi-Fi hotspots so that kids could learn from home. Some schools spent it on those stupid plastic dividers between the desks. They spent it on masks. Smart schools upgraded their HVAC system with it. Hey, we got $1 million. Let's put air conditioning in this building. Cool, great, wonderful, fantastic. A lot of schools spend it on people because school districts always love to hire more people. The problem is when you use one-time money to hire people, you either got to fire that person or you got to find more money. You had an awful lot of schools who used that one-time cash to hire not just people, but non-teacher people. And now, rather than thank those people for their service, school districts are crying poor. Eau Claire and Tosa are sort of the poster boy for this. They both continued to spend like gangbusters during the lean COVID years, and now that reality has hit, they're talking about cutting art or music, firing classroom teachers. Oh, we're not going to have anybody to teach gym. All because they decided to take their money and spend it on someone who, again, doesn't work in the classroom. Not every single one of these people got hired to be a deputy superintendent, but there are an awful lot of administrators. My daughter, the light of my life, had trouble reading when she was in elementary school. And I went for a meeting one day. And this is why, by the way, we chose to go to Brookfield Schools. All the help you could want. But I walked into a meeting, and it was my wife and I, and 8 other women. One of them was her classroom teacher. One of them was the school building learning coordinator. And the other 6 all had various jobs from something else. The meeting took forever. They gave me a report on what they thought. I read it in 5 seconds and said, okay, well, what do we need to do now? And they wanted to spend the rest of the day in that meeting. That was the only thing they had on their schedule. And everybody had to tell me who they were and what they did and the interaction they had with my daughter and all. And she's a great kid. And I'm like, guys, it's great that you have such a good focus in this one school district, but really we needed 8 people in one, but that's exactly how it is. The reality is that hiring people, non-teachers, in many cases, doesn't really help kids. It certainly hasn't improved reading, writing, and math scores. It hasn't had a significant impact on graduation rates or the success of our graduates. How many kids do you know who are graduating from high school this year are going to have to take a remedial class when they get to the UW next fall? They are going to have to pay to take high school math in college because their high school didn't do a good enough job of teaching them. And I know you're not going to find any sympathy for teachers' unions on this side of the microphone. I didn't even bother with the new report that says Act 10 worked. Wisconsin lost more of its teachers' union members than almost any other state. That's a good thing. Giving people choice is a great thing. Not making the teachers union a political behemoth is a wonderful thing. But all of this hiring that IRG has exposed, it hasn't helped teachers either. IRG had an entire portion of the report on what this is doing to teacher salaries. Teacher compensation is down significantly in inflation-adjusted dollars from 2010 to 2024. Some of that's going to be Act 10. But states like Iowa and South Dakota, which have kept staffing ratios stable, you got to move your mouth in 4 different directions to get that sentence out. They have raised their teacher pay. Here's the quote. Teacher pay is down And school referendum questions are up in part because schools have added staff while losing students, said Quentin Claiborne, senior research director at the IRG. School boards and parents must realize no one is served well by the status quo. Not students, not teachers, and certainly not taxpayers. I follow Quentin on X, and you should too. If you want to be about a day and a half ahead of everybody else in Wisconsin when it comes to education stuff, follow him. He really knows what he's talking about. School boards and parents must realize that no one is served well by the status quo. Not students, not teachers, not taxpayers. We have a tendency to forget that when we talk about people who are getting hired at schools, we all want more teachers. We want class sizes to be small. We would love it if you had 5, 10 kids per teacher, and then you could really engage, you could really teach. But the hiring explosion in Wisconsin has not been in the classroom. It has not been teachers. It's been somebody else. School psychiatrists, school psychologists, counselors, administrators, DEI folks. The Sun Prairie school staffer who just went to prison for sexting with a teenager, he was the dean of students. Wonder if that was a good hire for them. Once again this November, there will be a flood of school referendum questions. Local schools will beg for money. They will do what they always do. They will threaten to cut teachers. Well, we're not going to have art. We're going to eliminate band. Hey, you remember the fighting Chippewa volleyball team? We may not be able to have that this year unless you give us $27 million more every year. But you need to start asking the question, how many of the people that you have hired, how many of the people that you have on staff are actual teachers? Because we should be bothered that over the past 15 years, Wisconsin schools have hired about 1,000 teachers, but hired 10 times that many non-teachers. And all the while, our reading, writing, math scores, graduation rates, proficiency levels, the number of kids having to take high school classes in college, all of that has gotten worse. The only thing that's gotten better is the head count of adults in non-teaching positions in schools across the state of Wisconsin. Carpetland USA Flooring Center talk and text line 414-799-1130. Let's go line 1. Mike in Racine. Mike, you may have the last word on this, so don't screw it up, okay?
I'll try. Thanks for having me on. One of the things that we have been, as a society, we have been looking for teachers who can, quote, teach. And everybody's worried about how the teacher teaches and this and that and the other thing. What we don't have are teachers who allow children and kids and teenagers to learn. The best teachers I ever had, from middle school through high school, allowed us to learn. Presented material, you made mistakes, they help you figure things out, you figure things out by yourself, and you actually learned. You didn't regurgitate stuff. And you developed critical thinking skills. And that's what we don't have. You can have all the teachers you want, and one teacher per 5 kids. It won't matter if all they're doing is ramming stuff down their throats and saying, now repeat back or repeat after me.
Mike, that is a great point. I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so very much. I'm going to make one tiny correction. We can have all the teachers we want, but it's not the teachers who have to be allowed to teach. The school district administrators have to allow the teachers to teach. And this is the problem, that when you add 10 times as many non-teachers as you do teachers, well, these people with, as what a texter in the 262 calls them, BS jobs, they got to find something to do. They got to justify their salary. They got to justify their position. They got to justify their office. And far too often, they're the ones who are calling the shots, and they're the ones who are getting in the way of teachers teaching and kids learning. Carpetland USA Flooring Center talk and text line 414-799-1130 is always open. And I have not heard from one single teacher in Wisconsin who's told me I'm wrong about any of this. 724.